Welcome to the GOTO Podcast. Each episode covers the brightest and boldest ideas from the world's leading experts in software development. Tune in for practical lessons, compelling theories, and plenty of inspiration. GOTO gathers the brightest minds in the software community to help developers tackle projects today, plan for tomorrow, and create a better future. Stay up to date with the latest in tech through GOTO's top-rated events in cities like Amsterdam, London, Copenhagen, and Chicago, and by subscribing to the GOTO Conference's YouTube channel, where you can find thousands more high-quality dev talks. Learn more at gotopia.tech.
Kris and Marko, if you read the introduction here, I just take the last three words. Expect the unexpected. That's, I guess, where we'll go.
Okay. I like that. Expect the unexpected, because every good interview is a little bit jazz.
Yeah,
You don't know where you're going to.
Correct.
Which gives me a tie to the future, right? Because AI, we all know it's going to change things. No one knows how it's going to change things, because no one can really predict the future. I'm going to try and grill you as hard as I can while remaining British and polite about this afternoon. But you think you have an idea of where AI is and is going to take us and where it should take us.
Yeah, I think so. When looking at the software development and specific keeping that as the domain for today of the software development lifecycle, essentially, something where we bind agile methods 25 years ago, DevOps methods 15 years ago. Now next paradigm shift will be generative AI, and it's kind of the natural first place for showing the value of generative AI.
Okay, yeah. So I can see that, a lot of us programmers are finding that it's changing the way we work day to day. But what do you... Lay out your pitch and I'm going to hammer on it. What do you think... Where does generative AI fit in changing the way an organization does stuff?
So I've been asked by many of our customers for the North Star of software development, essentially. And it's funnily taking me back to when I started doing all this future of software development talk somewhere in 2005, roughly, when the cruise control came out and the tool as the original gangsta of continuous integration. And back in the day, the thought was that when you've made a commit and synced the commits, now you push it, but then you synced it. So you go and grab a cup of coffee, and when you come back, you can see either green or red color.
Yeah.
And if you saw green color, you knew that the commit was good based on the automation you had put in place, and you can move forward in the next feature. And now when you look roughly 20 years later, you look at how organizations should see the future of software development. The same 5 minutes that took you to grab a cup of coffee can now be done for full features through the end-to-end pipeline.
You're really that ambitious about full features on an existing code base with GenAI?
Yes. It's been shown by the tools. The freshest one, of course, are Lovable, which has been in the market for roughly 9 months now, and GitHub Spark was just released, doing very similar things, conversational UI for new features created, whether it's the existing code base or a new code base. And GitHub Coding Agent became public release was, I think, this Monday or roughly there, which means that you pick the existing code base, you tell what kind of a change you need, and it will be released. And you can expand that over to all of the different parts of your software development lifecycle with the tooling available already using generative AI.
So are you saying we'll have programmers using GenAI to talk about particular features, and you'll have testing people using their GenAI to do testing? So under that picture, does the whole organization remain exactly as it was? We just do more of it?
Yeah, no, exactly. That's the point. So already now I've had more than 1,000 commits per year for I think last 15 years almost, and this year I've dropped already below 1,000 commits a year. And
so you're doing less work, because we wanted lines of code and lines committed as a measure of work, right?
Yeah, I guess the exaggeration would be less work. I'm writing less code myself, and that's kind of the first place where you start. This is the place where everybody starts measuring how generative AI changes the organization, how does it enhance the way that we work. But in all honesty, it will expand across the whole software development lifecycle, which will mean that the developers will be closer to product owners, and product managers, product owners will have to understand more of the technology and work as the guardian of the direction and understanding and envisioning what should be done.
You know what that makes me think, right? Is if we're going to become, as software developers, we're going to become product owners as well, and we're going to get good at knowing what we should build as well as building it, we are going to need to spend a lot more time speaking to the end users who use these things we build, so we know what to build. We already heard that like 10, 15 years ago with Agile, and I don't think we got any smarter.
No, that's true. That's absolutely true. So the extreme example probably is from Anthropic, which is this living user interface changing according to the user actions. But I believe that everything that we've done across the DevOps transformation, and now I rather call it platform engineering or internal developer platforms, where you attach the observability and telemetry, the customer feedback as an input into the system. So you start to understand what the customers are doing. Part of it will be having these interviews with the customers, but that's kind of the classical way of doing it.
Yeah.
The modern way of doing it is finding out patterns with the help of generative AI from the customers and from the users, and bringing that back into kind of the beginning of the cycle, into this product discovery requirements management phase.
So do you see tomorrow's programmer as someone who is gathering page load times and feedback form submissions and Trustpilot reviews via an MCP server to GitHub, to VS Code, and then they make the feature? But is that what tomorrow looks like?
I think it's more like we talk about lots of cognitive load and lots of tooling that's in place already. Developers use dozens of different tools they have to understand the output from. I believe the work of tomorrow will be more pre-handled or pre-prepared information for developers, and of course testers, product owners, security teams. So all of the information that we consume will be easier to understand and conceptualize. So we will not be getting these page loads, and we will not be getting various detailed telemetry. Instead, we get a summary of what has been found, and then when you read it through, you either approve or decline that summary, and if you decline it, you probably dig deeper into where is this information coming from.
So you see a future in which I come into work, my agent says, the website's looking a bit slow today, would you like me to optimize it?
Well, essentially, not tomorrow, but the day after tomorrow, definitely it will work that way. So we already know that these solutions exist. Actually, they existed even before generative AI. Generative AI is just both lowering the threshold to actually try it out, and because it has democratized the kind of consumption of AI altogether, it has made it interesting also for the managers of the organization, which has opened the possibilities for investments, where generative AI is one part of understanding and using these new ways of working, but actually it's more fundamental change in these organizations.
That's something that definitely interests me, because I can see the people doing the work of building software just being expected to do a lot more of it and ship more features and more story points every week, while the management remains exactly as they were before.
Yeah.
Have we got any hope of using AI to refactor management?
So in all honesty, I think that's where we're heading. Unfortunately, we today see that organizations are starting from the simplest places, and that's only natural. So Accenture just 2-3 days ago talked about 11,000 layoffs because of generative AI, and I would assume that most of these layoffs will be on the lowest level of the organization.
People doing stuff rather than the people organizing the people organizing the people doing stuff.
And now looking at the big organizations that we work with, I work quite a bit with private equity organizations across their whole portfolio companies, and they're looking at, will generative AI make our development efforts more efficient? So can we produce the same amount of code with less people? And that's fundamentally wrong question. Because yes, generative AI maybe makes the developers more efficient, but the best organizations will recreate the way they produce digital solutions altogether. We are not so fine-tuning the existing workflow is going to make these organizations the same way legacy in the future as they are today. They will just have less people doing the same handovers and silos within the organization. That's why the North Star is in 5 minutes, because most organizations will never be able to do that.
Yeah. I'm reminded of Conway's Law, right? If you keep the structure of the organization the same, the communication channels and the functions will remain the same.
Exactly right.
But, okay, so then you're sometimes going into companies and telling them how they can get to this glorious future. Are you like Shakespeare saying, kill all the lawyers? Are you going in and saying, kill all the middle managers?
So, well, in all honesty, I think I've been working together with Matthew and Manuel on team topologies, and they've been also talking in some of our events as well. And I think team topologies is a concept that's worth looking into. Of course, it's existed for a while already pre-COVID, which is interesting.
Do you want to outline it for those that don't know?
Yes, absolutely. So they have formed a concept of how teams should work in the future. The key teams are stream aligned, which means that the teams working with features and digital applications, they are streamlined towards customer value. So the team's purpose is to produce value for the customers or the users.
Okay.
And then they have three other supportive team types. One is enabling team, which is helping these streamlined teams to do it better. Then there are these complicated subsystem teams, which are essentially the kind of teams that are taking care of very, very difficult concepts or difficult parts of the application, which then support these streamlined teams. And then there are platform teams that provide platforms that enable these streamlined teams to work more efficiently. And that's why I used to talk about platform engineering, because platform engineering is exactly aligned into helping these, let's call them today Scrum teams or Agile teams, but in the future they'll probably be just streamlined teams producing value to customers using the platform, end-to-end platform, as kind of the environment where they do all their work without this cognitive load and shadow IT and trying to understand and configure the tooling, instead just producing value.
So does that mean you want to see a setup where there is a hyper efficient Postgres and Oracle supply team for the rest of the organization, and they have AI agents hyper-tuned to their particular Postgres and Oracle supply world?
Well, essentially, and that would probably be kind of this complicated subsystem team providing this kind of service internally. Their customers will be the stream-aligned teams. The point is, when you start applying this to an organization, it will mean that the management structures and the traditional software development lifecycle blocks like requirements management, coding, building, testing, security, operations, they will start to combine together. These roles will start to bring together.
It sounds to me, forgive me being cynical, but it sounds to me like if we could like you're saying 5 years ago we knew how we should reorganize companies. If we could just do that and then pour the GenAI fire hose on it, we'd be off to the races.
Yeah.
Is it just simply that? If we We got to reorganize properly and then we can take advantage of GenAI?
No, absolutely not. And I think we see, as said, the recent layoffs and the fears in the job market of laying off manual work that's actually valuable and trying to replace it with generative AI is kind of the first movement. We see this like the reduction of offshoring, the reduction of outsourcing, that those are the first places where organizations try to cut costs with the means of generative AI. But that doesn't, as said, that will not take these organizations into the future. I'll give an example from Volkswagen. So when they started working on the ID vehicles, so the full electric vehicles, they started another company called Cariad, which had nothing to do with the Volkswagen R&D. They picked the best people from there to the new organization and said, build our North Star of software development in this organization. Show how it works. Your task is to build the software to the ID vehicles. And then when we've shown the value, we create a playbook out of it, and then we start applying it in the bigger organization.
That's very much like Steve Jobs, right? When he came back to Apple, he just did his Skunkworks project, hived off the best people, and basically recreated the company.
Yeah.
Now you say, so I can believe that can work because we've seen it work. But it sounds like what you're saying is we go into a bank and we say, just give me your best people and let me form a brand new department. And once they've figured out the right way to do software, they'll tell you, and of course you'll do what they say.
Surprisingly, many big organizations have been doing that already before generative AI as well.
Yeah. Really?
Yeah. And here in Denmark, for example, Bank Data is producing the banking IT services for a big amount of banks, and they're doing that. They're kind of the boiling pot of new practices, new ways of working, and they produce playbooks that are then given over to the banks. Of course, there's always, when you have compliancy or embedded some sort of regulations in place, it's harder. But still it's what I say with embedded organizations is that your customers probably don't want continuous delivery. Because if you're driving a car, you don't want your software to be updated 8 times a day.
Yeah.
But instead, if your organization's goal is to have a new version every 3 months, you're heavily sub-optimizing your capacity. So the organization should start internally looking at this North Star of 5 minutes, being able to have these release candidates available continuously. Where it, like Uber, I think they're doing, it was in the last DevOps days, they are doing hundreds of deliveries to production every day because it's digital software, you can do it, it's there. The big ones are all doing that. But in embedded environments, you cannot do that last step, but it doesn't disable you from creating an organization that's capable of doing that, because then you can both measure and improve the way of working on a completely different level. Like you get efficiency in the order of magnitude when you start transforming the organization to less handovers and less manual work on places where you can replace it with automation or generative AI.
This still seems like the fundamental problem hasn't changed from being the org structure. And I'm kind of hoping you're going to tell me that there's some way we can use AI not to change the pieces in the chart, but to completely rechange the chart.
Yeah, so generative AI, as for the last 25 years, has evolved in huge steps in such a way that during the last 2 years, these generative AI tools like ChatGPT, if you compare them to the human capabilities, 2 years ago it was really close to random guess, and now most of the answers you get out are closer to like doctorate level, which means that we fundamentally created a system that can assist us humans in a better way. We know that the coding tools, such as Claude Code or Cursor AI or GitHub Copilot, they help us developers to create the basic building blocks of applications.
Yeah.
But but fundamentally changing the organizations, changing the society, doing kind of this geopolitical game, which is already happening, it will take years and years of time. And of course, in these organizations where you have what I would call legacy management.
But not to their faces.
And not to their faces, for sure. But in all honesty, it will take time in those organizations. And some of those organizations, we already see it, I think, like if you look at Salesforce stock value for the last 6 months, you already see that some of the organizations are getting hurt from the fact that the competition in the easiest areas of the market, like SaaS business, is going to become fierce. And the owners and top management of these organizations have to react to that. And they have to do very difficult decisions also regarding the management and the middle management of the organization in the future.
You've made me think that the programmers risk being fired, but the managers risk just the company disappearing, right? That's the difference.
No, that's the difference. And in all honesty, those developers and when I talk about developers, I, by the way, try to talk all of the technical people across, whether it's SREs or security teams or quality assurance, they're all in this development organization. All of the ones who embrace generative AI, all of those who actually understand customers' language and can form the vision of what should be done, I believe they will be getting, like, their roles will increase in these organizations where you don't need managers to handle various teams. Instead, you have smaller, like these pizza-sized teams that will be able to deliver the same features during the same day.
Okay, so what does my life look like if I'm one of those in your future organization?
So some of the organizations are already capable of doing, like, I know it might irritate some, but let's call it mini scrum.
Mini scrum.
It's like no, I know. Don't jump. Yeah, small agile.
I mean, I prefer mini golf to golf, so can we have crazy scrum?
No, but when you go to work, you look at you sit down together, you decide on what features should we ship today. And when you leave work for the day, you've already shipped it to production.
Okay, that's the dream.
So no, that's one step towards the dream, of course.
Okay, what's the next step after that dream?
I've started today by saying that I believe that features can be delivered in 5 minutes. So essentially, some of the features in the future, which are coming directly from the telemetry and the observability that we placed upon the users, the customers of our software, it will feed us features during the day saying that when our customers are having their payment done with this and this mechanism, they will have an extra click. And we've seen that it reduces the retention by this and this many %. Can I propose that we remove this click by adding the button into the previous view? Yes, no. And then when you click yes, it starts a process that creates this feature change for you, and then you ship it into the production environment. Sounds frightening, but that's essentially what we are already capable of doing.
See, I'm not sure if I'm frightened so much as excited, but not convinced human beings will be able to make the best use of this.
Well, I still believe, and whether it's like this childish belief or not, I still believe that the smartest ones as organizational entities, not just as people, but organizational entities, the smartest ones will be able to put this into use. It will generate playbooks, which are then globally used to copy. The same way as we've had from these Apples and Metas and...
Okay, what does that playbook actually look like? Because are you talking about like a PowerPoint deck that I then go and bark at the rest of the org? Or are you saying something like, here's an MCP server with a Claude.md file that really works in this domain?
I think it's 3 different levels of fundamental changes within organization. The first one is the strategy. And the strategy will include essentially being able to measure. The second level is then the people. So now we're in the phase where we upskill these people. In the next phase, we will be looking at how do we reorganize the people that we have today. And then the third phase will be essentially how do we reorganize everything? How do we build the future organization? And then the third layer is the technology. So how do we implement the capabilities in order to embrace this change within the organization?
And do we need to look at, like, how about put it this way, team topologies. Do we need a fifth team that's agenting, like building custom agents for different tasks, so that we have the AI optimizing the kinds of tasks people do?
My hypothesis, looking at how platform engineering has been implemented within organizations, and platform engineering, once again, I'll briefly explain, is a platform for all of both the development tooling, the templates for the organization to reuse in different purposes. So especially if you're following microservices and you need a new service, you will not start coding it from scratch, you'll start from templates. And then when you have this template library within the organization, it lies in the developer platform, which follows platform engineering. Then you'll probably have your knowledge base and internal service management, like a platform team helping out how to use this tooling. Okay, so platform engineering has existed already, and it's growing. I think the biggest one who made it public was Spotify's Backstage, but now we have lots of other tools, and I would rather expand the concept into also version control and kind of the continuous delivery pipelines. So agents. My hypothesis is that agents will work exactly the same way in the future. So we will have some sort of agentic orchestration platform in place. There will be similar team as platform engineering team. In some cases, it will be exactly the same team. And the agents and templates will co-live in such a way that when you need an agent for a purpose, one of the easiest examples is, since we're in Europe, would be like GDPR compliance. So whenever you do new features, you would need to have a GDPR compliance check, for example. You pick an agent that does GDPR compliance check for you, you apply it into your software development lifecycle, and you press OK. And then every time you do a change, you have this agent that's connected to the platform working for you. And when there are changes to the agents, you don't do it yourself, but it comes from the platform team in team topologies.
Do you know what this is reminding me of? You can take out like Rod Johnson, right? And he will say, we've got these patterns that we know work in an organization for building software, and we've coalesced it into a spring bean that you annotate your code with, and suddenly you have this capability in the organization. And maybe we don't need to reinvent the structural wheel, but it sounds like GenAI is like the next generation of the ideas we've already got for organizing things.
I think our intelligence is not going anywhere, and I think many of the innovations that we've done over the years, like even if you go back to NASA programs, they were doing versions of agile, versions of continuous integration, even while none of that were invented or nowhere near to be invented as terms. So we have been able to find patterns that suit us. And in the near term, I don't think generative AI are going to change those fundamentally working patterns.
Do we need to wait until AI gets so much more smart than a human that we feed the org chart into an agent and ask it which way we should organize our company?
The more interesting thing is, how does this geopolitical game pan out? It's not the topic for today, but do we work 2 days a week, or do we only have 10% of the population working in the future? That's more fundamental question than what are the patterns.
Yeah. I can see that if we got down to the days where we had a 2-day week, we'd wonder what to do with the other 3 we got back, and we'd end up creating work for ourselves.
Probably. I think you're right.
Yeah, hopefully more interesting work.
And Neil Gaiman has written about the culture, and that's kind of interesting concept because it's weird how close we are getting to that kind of a world where we have all our time for our hobbies in a culture which is augmented by robots and AI, and we still come up with ways to fulfill ourselves. And for some people it will be works, for some people it will be hobbies, for some people it will be traveling. And I also at the same time understand with the current geopolitical setup, it's probably going to, if we go down this road, will regard only very small fraction of humanity. So let's hope something happens on a bigger level.
I certainly hope so. I can't see how it's going to, but geopolitics isn't my specialist subject.
Mine neither.
Okay, well in that case, let's try and pull it back to the software world we know. Everybody out there is trying to reorganize and capitalize on GenAI. Who do you think is doing it well, and who do you think is doing it badly? And like, what's the difference between the two? That's the real question.
Yeah. So
how do we fail? Tell me how we fail.
So I think, so once again, I fear that most of the generative AI will regard, once this biggest boom is starting to settle, we already see that the implementation percentages of generative AI in the US is plateauing, so it's not growing anymore at the same pace as it used to, which means that we're finding some sort of an equilibrium on which pace organizations are implementing these solutions. And at some point we're going to have to find some sort of a slower pace of development of the LLMs and the models that we've now put in place. The last 2 years has been crazy, just simply crazy.
Yeah.
So my fear is that organizations will try to sub-optimize their software development lifecycle in such a way that when you have a development organization here, and currently you have 100 developers and 10 testers, you will reduce it to 50 developers and 5 testers and try to get the same output from that group of people.
Super believable.
Yeah, which to me looks like heavy sub-optimization of what organizations would be capable of doing with the fundamental change.
What's the fundamental change? What should they be doing with those 150 and 10?
Then we go back to what I talked about, the team topologies. Essentially, if you look at the 5 minutes as a North Star, you will not be able to do it with the traditional roles in the software development lifecycle, because already the handover will take hours at best, usually days, which means that you're going to be stuck in this. When you start measuring the end-to-end throughputs, you will see that you only, like one of the examples that I use is that R&D organizations usually spend 5 to 10% on the actual software development of their budgets. And now if you go and optimize that software development by, the research shows 20% roughly, that's also what we see across our customers today. But if we even took 50%, you would be able to improve your R&D by 2.5 to 5%. So that's heavy sub-optimization of what you're doing. When you scale it up to the whole organization, of course, you're going to get to somewhere double digits in percentage, but it will not be this orders of magnitude or fundamental changes. So what we will need are the organizations that are going to be able to use the new ways of working, apply them into a product which replaces an existing, I'll just say dinosaur, but existing enterprise or existing big product in the market with the new way of working.
Okay. I can sort of see how we get there, but I realise the only way we're actually going to get there is not to ask how programmers' jobs will change, but we need a vision of how managers' jobs will change so that they can change from the way they've always done things.
Yeah.
What does management look like tomorrow? I think I know what you're trying to avoid saying.
Yeah. Oh man, what questions. So the concept of pizza or 2 pizza teams has been around for quite long already. That's one of the ways that I see taking it back to the team topologies, is that when you have teams that are self-organized and capable of delivering new features into production themselves, with only some interactions between, for example, security automation or security teams with augmented generative AI. So there, of course, these structures will still exist. These teams will themselves be able to formalize and develop either new features or applications themselves, which means that this kind of olden product owners, product managers, developers, and quality assurance, it doesn't exist similarly anymore, which means that the organizational management will have to augment into closer to something that we today call experimentation. So setting the vision, which will be probably requiring way less managers than we need today, and then somehow managing the experimentation. And of course, that's why I talk about platform engineering, because platform engineering usually also enables you to attach some sort of metrics within the organization to measure not only the performance, but also how well are you able to produce value to your customers.
Right. I will forgive you for avoiding saying it, but it sounds like by the back door you're saying that whilst it's perfectly acceptable to say the programmers' jobs are going away, really it might be the managers that get automated away by AI, because we don't need so much management.
Yeah, actually it's interesting because
I just need to see who in the audience is uncomfortable from that thought. Okay, yeah.
So I'm a Finn, and when
you're a thing.
Finnish.
Oh, you're Finn. Sorry.
Yeah, so I'm from Finland,
okay,
which means not Scandinavia, but a Nordic country. And when we look at Nordic organizations, disregarding the highly compliant organizations, I think the management structures are already quite flat. It's part of the way that we see the world, and it's part of the way how we can be self-organized without heavy management. And I believe when you go to UK or USA, the management structure is way more rigorous. And I understand your question, because we don't have similar. So even in the company I work in Eficode, if any of the employees wanted to have half an hour with the CEO, they would be able to ask for that and get it, and they would be able to rant all of the problems that they have. They like how to put it in action is different topic, but the channel is there. But in traditional organizations and in many other parts of the world, it's not possible. And I believe this kind of a management structure that you're implying will disappear. It will have to disappear, because it slows down the change. It slows down the way applications or digital services are created for the customers, because there's so much overlay. And also, in all honesty, the knowledge has always been in the people who actually create these solutions.
Okay.
So
you can't go into customers saying that, but I'm glad we've got it out of you.
I already told you I'm working quite a bit with private equity organizations.
Where they either don't have or are quite happy to fire the managers.
You said it, not me.
Okay. Okay, so then I'm tempted to ask how we retrain managers to do work, but let's not go there, because I can see because we're running out of time. So.
Best organizations, I believe, are able to build a model where already today, and I'm referring to Scandic organizations, by the way. Mm-hmm. The salary levels with the best developers and managers are level. So the traditional organizations you're referring to, the managers are getting higher salaries than the development organization.
Yeah, you like developing, but you need more money to pay for the kids.
What did you say earlier? Coal face.
At the coal face, yes, the British expression.
Yeah, exactly. So, and I think the best organizations, if you go to US and you look at the digital organizations, the best digital organizations, the highest salaries paid already to the developers. So I don't see management as a similar problem apart from the rigorous way of developing software, which has to go. Some of these managers have been promoted from being a developer over to product owner, over to department managers. But the skills of the olden understanding of what should be done and how it's done and what the vision should look like is still there. So some of them will have roles augmented back towards how they used to be. And then some of them will find another occupation.
That gives me hope, actually, because I spent most of my career resisting the push into management just for and getting away from the thing I actually love, which is building stuff for people. Let me end on one very speculative question then. If we get it back to the end user, do you think the future looks like us getting much faster to what the customers actually want and building it? Or is it going to go the other way and fragment and we end up building so much more software that whole little tribes of end users get exactly what they want?
So there's a good word for this, it's called feature creep. It's been around for a while already, and I fear that the generative AI implementation as point solution across the software development lifecycle will lead into feature creeps. So we're able to deliver so many features so fast that the end user experience is way worse.
Yes, yeah.
So my answer to you is, on a short term, we're probably going to fail this miserably. But on a longer term, when we can actually attach the customer experience into being part of the software development lifecycle, we will become better at it. And as said, Anthropic already showed that you can actually have a living user interface based on your actions. So that's probably something that's also going to happen in the future, is that the experience of UI, whether it's conversational or graphical UI, will live based on individual users' behavior or wishes.
So the user also becomes part of this development.
The experience.
Yes. Yeah. Okay.
For sure.
I think that looks like a very interesting future. I do not want to support my father-in-law's IT problems with it. I think at that point we've got time to just throw it open for a couple of audience questions. So I've been grilling you enough. Does anyone have any questions? For Marko. We've got a microphone coming round.
Hi, thank you very much. Kris, I really loved your questions.
Thank you.
But you sound like someone who answers questions like you build stuff. To me, you sounded like you answer very elusively, like manager. Because there was a very good question of who is capitalizing badly and well on generative AI. Could you actually answer this question? Because you start on going about your fears and assumptions, but you never actually said who's doing it well, who's doing it badly. If we're about to say we have a new GenAI as our teammate, who do we look up to? And who we definitely say we should not aspire to be like that company. Thank you.
Okay, so you asked the question who are doing well and who are doing badly.
Yeah.
So I believe the question, I'm hoping I'm answering it properly, but I believe all the companies that are started today or this year will be the ones who benefit the most. So essentially the kind of companies. So generative AI will open, it's kind of a new gold rush to new innovations and also replacing existing innovations with better ways of doing. Today the answer is companies such as Lovable, who's raised from... No, but the company itself. So Lovable, they released their first products January, and now they're valued $2 billion.
There is that risk that their customer
there is that
bases...
risk. But I don't mean the product that they've created. I mean that they've started from scratch, from a new way of creating applications into the markets that already has an open supply chain for everybody. So disregard the fact that it's creating applications by prompt. We don't talk if it's quality or not. Think of that as the fundamental new innovation. And these kinds of innovations will emerge in the market in very different areas. So I believe, for example, CRM is one of the next ones that will go, like the old, very expensive CRMs will be replaced by a more innovative way of doing it. So the answer to your question, I'm not sure if I can be concretical enough, is the organizations who take this North Star, the new way of creating software, and create something with a fraction of the team that big organizations currently use, and create the same solutions, they are the ones that will win in the market in the short time.
Okay, make it concrete just quickly, because we are running out of time. But so I am running a CRM company that's been established for 30 years, and I see this new... Tell me one specific thing that Lovable are doing behind the scenes in their organization that I should adopt tomorrow.
So essentially it's building, like for some organizations, it will copying existing market features. So copying an application that exists in the market and being able to do it at fraction of the price that the other organization has spent for it. And just releasing it as whether it was open source or just very small fee compared to what the big ones are doing.
Yeah.
So that's kind of because many big organizations prior to generative AI have spent huge amounts of R&D budget into creating applications that are very easy to replicate as of today. And there are no IPR protections to certain kinds of applications. So this will lead us into what will protect the organizations, but we don't have time for that discussion. So I'm trying to answer the fact that new applications will be created at fraction of the price of the existing expensive applications is where we will see the first winners in the markets, and then we'll start copying on how did they manage to do not only the application, the release of it, but also the business model and market penetration.
You know, in the early days of the internet, it's like suddenly the market for selling music started to dry up because you could just copy it and have your own copy for free on things like Napster. Sounds like you're saying businesses might go the same way.
I think to an extent, but we've been doing it all the time. So if you take any of these kind of enterprise applications, whether it's ERPs or CRMs or whatever, we've been replacing them over the period of time with new players in the market.
That's true. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. As always, I'm going straight back to grilling him. Have we got time for one more question from the audience? Have we got one more question? No. Oh, no. I'm being told we've run out of time. So, Marko, thank you very much. Eficode, CTO.
Yep, correct.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the GOTO podcast. Head over to gotopia.tech to discover lots more content from the brightest minds in software development.